did everything, collegiate athlete, and then got into marketing and branding after college. And I learned so many things the hard way, but this was like 2004-ish, so before Instagram, before small business really had all this opportunity with social media. So now it's like a really exciting time if you're doing your own thing, whether you're an influencer or you have a brand or you have a business that has been around for 15 years, there's so many amazing things you can do right now to elevate your game and compete with the big dogs, the Nikes, the Kellogg's, the whatever. So these are just like some tips and tricks on how to do that. But as mission-driven, intentional humans, it's more important than ever that we step into that space and really start to what I call gracefully disrupt some of these mainstream situations. It then go into like big food, big pharma, and it can go into like voting and the whole thing. So it's all kind of connected. So we're going to break it down. I do talk fast, so if at any point you have a question or you want me to slow down, let me know. Don't worry about writing these. Some of these are a little bit wordy, but I uploaded this entire presentation on my website. So it's on there now if you want to follow along. It's kalylance.com. But if you want to look at it later, it's all there. So you don't need to write it down, but the whole thing's there and the links and all that. This is just kind of the intro. You'll see all these pictures. These are like my actual friends. Those are your best potential brand ambassadors because they know you. They're probably like you. So you'll see them throughout. They should probably be invoicing me for using their likeness. But they're not here to hear all this. So why are we talking about this? If you're here and in this room or even at this conference, you're probably called to step into the light in some capacity. So it's really just recognizing that and then actually doing it. So we're going to kind of talk about stepping into it, really getting in, and it's before this conference kicked off, I was even telling Chelsea earlier, like I'd always managed people or helped companies get into the light, but I hadn't really stepped into it myself. So even now at 41, almost 42, and 20 years in business, I'm just now doing it. So I'm kind of in path and on journey with most of the people that I'm speaking to, because it's such a psychological thing to like be help and promote something or be behind the camera, and then to actually step in front of it's a whole other thing. But as we'll get into, there's a responsibility in doing that. So I'm in it with you. The business-wise, if you are an influencer, you have a brand or a company, whatever, building brand ambassadors and utilizing social media is hands down the most cost and time effective way to get your word out there, and it's the most authentic, and it's how our young people are shopping. It's so cool now when you go to like high schools or even elementary schools. I don't love that they have cell phones, that's a whole other podcast, but they can be intentional. They'll be like, oh, this is a woman-owned company. In elementary school, they're that savvy and that conscious of a consumer where they'll intentionally shop. So if our kiddos get the joke, then we can slowly get our adults, us, to come around. But like they have access to intentionally consume specific things, and in turn, that builds the business. So now we're making more money, we can make more noise. Like the whole process kicks off. So there's kind of the why we're going to get into this, and always cultivating community is kind of the base of everything. I do have a prediction. I'm thinking within the next few years that social media will be completely taboo. I don't think our young people will think that it's cool, that everything's out there. So while most businesses are leaning so heavy into social media, which is fine, I think it's going to be not the cool thing very long. So if you're building your community IRL in real life and you have your actual humans, it doesn't matter if social media goes away. So when Gary Vee or these guys come out years from now, like, we told you it was going to come out, know that you heard it first. This is kind of what we're going to cover. I just told you, it's our mission-driven humans. We're going to talk about purpose and core values. Whether you own the business or you are the influencer, it really does start with you. You're your number one ambassador, so we're going to talk a lot about core values. This was the biggest thing that I did way too late in life. As a competitive athlete, as a business owner, as a female with 3 younger brothers, core values would have been huge very early on. So I've got a really good thing in there that you guys can check out. Our attitude on social media, we're going to talk about being your own ambassador, and then we're going to touch on sponsors and strategic partnerships. I'm huge on this. You want your community, like your ambassadors, your fellow humans to support what you have going on, but strategic partners, working with some of the big guys is really big, and there's opportunity now. They want to work with smaller companies like us because they want to get into those communities. So there's huge opportunity with that to leverage yourself, like brand leverage what they have going on, and then tap into their community. So this is the biggest piece. Even my bigger clients that are big businesses, whoever my lead point of contact is, I have them run their core values. 1, so they kind of get the joke on what's going on, because a lot of them haven't done that. But 2, it gives me intel on how to best communicate and work with them. So I was mission-driven humans. KO Alliance is my consulting company. We only work with mission-driven companies at this point. So that's 501c3s, certified B corporations, anyone that's aligning their purpose with what they're doing, so it's not just your run-of-the-mill like consumer packaged goods and whatnot. That's not necessarily the best monetary way to go, but at this point you really, for me, I need to be working with people that are doing something larger than just trying to make money. So if it helps my journey move along and stay in my core values. My core values, there's actually a link, so after this, I've done tons of intuitives, coaching, therapy, fitness, everything, like you name it, we've tried to dial it in. Core values is the #1 thing I would suggest, and there's tons of free tests on the internet. I found one, it's $35, and it gives you like 6 pages of what your core values are. Mine are honesty, independence, and creativity. I'm pretty self-intuned and physically and mentally being an athlete, but when I got mine back, I'm like, creativity, like, is that even a core value? Like, what does that mean? And then when I thought about it, I'm like, oh, I'm creating shirts all the time. I want to be, I'm a walking billboard. Like, this is part of my thing. And like, knowing that, I could put that into my professional situation. It just made it that much more satisfactory. So you got to have like your monetary goals and what you want to get, but you've got to make sure the journey is really serving your heart space. Otherwise, it's just kind of like you're pressing through and it doesn't matter. And this isn't really like conscious conversation of companies that be graduating from, economics and business or whatever. Like, they're not really teaching you about connecting your heart to what you're doing. And that's why there's so much dissatisfaction in so many of these corporate jobs. Even if you own your own business, like, you've got to really get to the core values. That's why I was so curious on how you started yesterday, because I'm like, this must be in alignment with like what she cares about, because it's such a unique situation. So do your core values. Like I said, there's free tests on there, but this is the link and it's on my website. It's the top thing that I really, really suggest, and it gives you a ton of intel. In addition, like I said, I have my clients always do the individual or business, so I know how to work with them, but also it's the base of everything we build on. We form their mission, vision, and values around those core values. So it directly speaks to who they are and what they're doing, and then we apply that to the business. So if anyone's having trouble defining, if you're thinking about starting a business or you want to get out there and further space yourself as an influencer, do this test, because then that can help you write your mission, vision, and values for your business. It literally, because people are like, well, I don't know what that means, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, do the test. That will tell you what you want to do, and it will be very clear once you do it. And it's simple and it's fun. These are the 2 things that keep me accountable. Fitness, if you want a close-up on my roots, there you go. And Turmeric and Tequila is my podcast. I started that because being in marketing and branding for so long, and I coached, I played lacrosse in college, so I coached for like 10 years out of college, and I saw my kiddos just consuming the reality more and more off their phone, and I didn't grow up with that. I graduated high school in '99, so I didn't really have a cell phone until after college, thank God, and Facebook and the whole thing. So I was like, oh my God, this, as a branding professional, reality is nothing more than applied meaning, which we'll go over. I'm like, this is where their world exists, with filters and mirrors and lies. I'm like, so we gotta create a platform, Turmeric and Tequila, the juxtaposition of being all things, to create a space to have my varsity humans, like Sarah, who's been on there, I think 2 or 3 times, come on and share their stories. I wanted our young people to see examples of humans that questioned a better way, lived outside of status quo, and did it their way, which in turn leads to personal satisfaction, positive mental health, XYZ. But we don't go that deep with them. I just say go check out Turmeric and Tequila, but don't drink tequila if you're not drinking. I am a philosophy fan. If you're not into philosophy, I always say, to sum it up, to live is to suffer. That's kind of all you really need to know. But reality is nothing more than applied meaning. So if you really sit there and like drink that in, like we call, this a water bottle because we've been told it's a water bottle. This is a table. Like everything has been taught. So if you unpack it further, everything's been made up. So if you're out there doing your thing, like this is a thing. Turmeric and Tequila is a thing because I said it is. Like, so you can like embrace this power of like anything you want to be something, you can make it a thing by applying your own meaning. So it's really, really powerful. I laugh because in college I was an athlete, so my #1 thing was caring about lacrosse, and they gave me my schedule initially. We got priority registration, more than like the honor students and everything, which is kind of funny. And my first class was business and ethics, which I thought was funny. I'm like, they do teach you to be ethical, one thing. And then it was philosophy. I can't remember what they call it, but I was like, this is so dumb. I'm like, what? I don't need to learn this. And then now, 25 years later or whatever, it's like the base of everything I do. So sometimes you just have to go with the process and trust that you don't know. this is where all of our meaning is coming from, and this is why it's so huge. As a business, as a brand, as an individual, we have to find a way to have a positive narrative around this, but recognizing the responsibility of how powerful this is, and especially for our young people, this is where they're getting their truths. They're seeing like what women look like, what men look like, the roles, like everything's coming from there, and who's controlling a lot of that? Big companies, influencers that maybe aren't socially responsible. Like, it's a lot of conversation that needs to be recognized and know how much power is within what we're consuming off our phones. So social media is tough. Who in here likes social media? Okay. So no, it's not. Don't be ashamed. It's I think it's good, but like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Kind of like turmeric and tequila. We have the party, and then you need to wake up in the morning and go do a workout and handle your shit. But it's really critical, especially as a small business, that while I acknowledge the negatives, the positives are massive. Like, we can compete now as small businesses with huge corporations. I can reach people that I would never have been able to reach when I initially started my first business getting out of college, with one click of a mouse, with one Instagram post. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that the opportunity's there. And it's taken me some time, because again, I was coaching, seeing my kiddos look at, 100-pound Instagram models, and then I'm watching them not eat their food at lunch. And so I'm seeing what's happening. So I have to let that be here, but then socially come in with responsibility, be like, okay, I can't mute this noise, I can't tell them what to do, but I can disrupt what's going on, and I can show up a certain way, and I can present what I think is ethically valued, or something that I think should be like a role model for our young people. So finding a way to have a positive connotation, because that energy will transfer into whatever you're doing. And I really do think business, individual, whatever, you should embrace social media and take advantage of it. Even if you need to hire someone because you hate it. I have many clients that hate it, so you hire somebody and they handle their social media for them. That's fine. But get your energy right around it, so then when you're putting it out there, I don't know if anyone's into like the woo and energy, just go with me on this. Find a way to like be positive about it, and that will show through in your posts and everything else. Like I said, it's a huge opportunity for small businesses. Always recognize responsibility. This is why I love these kinds of conferences and people like us, because everyone's showing up with intention to be better themselves, and that transcends through their work, through their parenting, through whatever. It all kind of carries through. So it's big. Disrupt the noise. If you're called and you feel, like I said, take on that responsibility, really get in there. As I noted, I said I have 3 younger brothers growing up, and so graceful disruption is part of the turmeric and tequila mantra. Trademarking was a whole thing. If you want to know about that, let me know. But I added the graceful in there because growing up with 3 brothers, and like I'm always ready to battle, but like we're adding the grace to it and coming in. So there's a good way to disrupt things, and you don't always have to, kick down the door and burn down the building. Sometimes you do, but you can add a little grace in there. This is my crew. Like I said, the Bible Tax, the tribe. These are all my friends that make me the ambassadors and one of my dogs. But if you have good people in your role, and if you're in spaces like this, like always take a moment to acknowledge to yourself and to others, like, I'm so privileged to be here because I know how quality of human beings have come to this kind of event. So just make sure you get your stuff together so you're tracking the right track. The environment we are in and the people we surround ourselves with and the media we consume define Applied Meaning our realities no matter what. I reiterate this with my clients, usually like when they're over 30s-ish, because it's probably been a long time since they've talked about core values or whatever. I have pretty mindful clientele at this point, but it's hard not to get locked into our every single day and just kind of go through the motions, especially as we get older and we get in routine. And maybe we have friends, you heard Yolanda say in the keynote, that we need to let go of, or practices. I'm a pretty grounded, self-aware human, but training and competing in fitness, I wasn't always in the best training environments, and it broke me down. Sore throat because I wasn't using my voice, but it wasn't because of the training. It was like all these things that were impacting me. So you really got to check in with yourself on the regular of who am I around, what am I doing, what am I consuming, and is this beneficial to me? This is like core values, and then a once-a-month practice of just a moment of saying like, who am I around, what's going on, and does this really align with me? And don't be afraid to clean house, because that's necessary. These are 2 of my friends being the most. Build your brand ambassador team. So we kind of talked about stepping into the light, understanding what you're going to do, because you do need to be your top brand ambassador, the one, bleeding it. If you see me, I'm always in turmeric and tequila, because I'm a big believer. If I don't bleed it, why should you? So you'll see me in it all the time. and it's very grassroots, budget friendly for a starting out company. But you probably already have brand ambassadors. So when I say influencers, that's a little bit cringy at this point. That term has lost some of its punch because everyone's an influencer now, and you think of the person that doesn't want to work and they just want to take pictures of themselves, scantily clad, and make money. And that's true. And you can, again, switch the narrative and understand that even as an individual or as an influencer, as a small podcast, you have brand ambassadors. You have your friends that are super pumped to don your logo and rock the apparel and whatever. Like, that's your crew. And when they're walking around in like your turmeric and tequila, and Sarah was just telling me she works at the gym, people always ask, that little stuff is so impactful. That's way more meaningful to me and potentially monetizable than me buying an Instagram ad of me lifting weight or something and me in my own shirt. Like, it's huge. So lean onto your immediate crew. Your ambassador team doesn't need to be massive. It can be small, but just be intentional about it and wrangle them together. And usually if it's your friends, they're gonna wanna wear your stuff anyways. They're excited to be around something that's cool and be a part of that little growing community. A formal invite and welcome to the team. So I'm gonna go through a little bit of like actually how to do this. So if you have a company or if you are an influencer, like again, keep in mind anything can build a brand ambassador team. And this is the most cost and time effective way to market, and if social media goes away, you have your community in your life. So get to your immediate enthusiasts, send them a formal invite or welcome. If I have 3 friends, I'm starting my podcast, I actually, on my website, there is a sample of a welcome letter where you can be like, hey, Sarah, Jill, and John, thank you for tuning into Turmeric and Tequila. I'm building this brand ambassador program. I'd love for you to be on it. I'm gonna send you some t-shirts. I put you on the email list, and then once a month, I would love a review or however you communicate with them. But it's something easy, like just some sort of formal thing to make it a thing. Reality is nothing more than applied meaning, so we're making this a thing. Identify expectations and perks. Again, that sounds corporate and like stringent. It's not. Just be like, here's our hashtags, here's our guidelines, here's this, here's what we want you to do. You can keep it simple, or with like my big programs that are like 6+ figures and it's a very formal situation, that's like 3 pages long. But starting out, it doesn't need to be that complex. This is more of my community. As you can see, I mean, it's fun. Like, it's seriously, there's nothing that makes something more real than when you see some of your stuff in print or you see your friends in it. It's such big heart space, and that in turn fuels the fire to like drive the cause. So go get your company, go get a shirt, and get all your friends to wear it. Inspiration versus influence. This is funny because my young startup companies or like the newer companies, they always get this. They want to be inspired. And then there's the corporates are like, how do we do influence? What are the KPIs? Like, how do we do this business? And I'm like, listen, nobody wants to be influenced. They want to be inspired to do something. So if I'm telling you, like old school corporate, like this is what I want you to do. This is how you get, a 6-pack. Do this, da da da. Like, you're not inspired. You're just doing it like a soldier. That's not how our young people consume anymore. I mean, they see that and they'll be like, see ya. Like, I'm walking away. They don't want to go have a corporate job anyway. So it's learning to speak the language. But truthfully, again, if you're coming from that heart space, it's really going to be authentic and you're inspiring people versus like having to coercively influence them into something. As you can see, like the media is 24/7 all the time. But if you're in that heart space and you're doing it from a space of inspiration, all that stuff is easy. You just let it be what it is. Okay, so you've got your, ideal people to start off this brand ambassador team. You want to make sure they really do know the brand, and this is the upside of your friends. If they're your humans already, they're going to probably have similar core values to you. They're already going to know about what you're doing, and they're going to be able to repeat and believe the cause the way you do because you probably talk about it a lot. That's where you really want to start. So my big brands, when they're like, we want, a person with 1 million followers and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's great, but we have Jane over here that's like a swimsuit model on her Instagram and she's getting 1 million likes. Well, how many of those like basement creepers are gonna buy your $7 protein shake? 0%. So it's not always about like the biggest, following and likes and stuff, like KPIs and engagement. We won't go down that rabbit hole. They're important, but it doesn't say everything. You really gotta find quality versus quantity. So you wanna pick the right humans from the get-go. I spend the most time in recruiting. Sarah's been an ambassador for a couple things. That takes the bulk of our job. Like taking time, it's like recruiting for a sport, getting the right humans to represent this cause because we want a long-term mutually beneficial relationship, not a paid per post, quick transactional thing. We are building community. Social media guidelines can be simple or complex. Give them your hashtags, give them like your mission statement, give them all the basic stuff so when they do go to post, They've got all your stuff right there. I usually just tell them, like, save it in your notes on your phone, so when you post, you cut and paste it out of the notes, and there's all the key messaging guidelines we need for turmeric and tequila ambassadors. Key messaging, just your basic stuff, graceful disruption for me. Obviously, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, like any of those things. Make sure your crew knows. Send swag. I cannot say enough about stickers. These are up here for the taking if you guys want them. Super simple. There's a podcast I would suggest that I did that kind of gets into this stuff, how you can do it really easily or free. Stickers are the easiest and cheapest way for people to rep your logo and you to get out there without having to do t-shirts or ordering a bunch. You can do them on Amazon. I think you can order like 16 for like $20, and it's a quick order. Before you had to order like 500 and it was like $200. You had to upload the logo and whatever. It's quick and easy now, so that's like a really quick way to start. And again, it's really cool to see your own stuff in print. Psychologically, it's a game changer. Make your crew feel special. So like digital shout-outs and newsletters, I do spend a lot of time like personalizing stuff where I can, making sure they have the right t-shirt, or if they've got an event coming up or their kiddos speaking at something, like supporting them as a human being. As a coach, I always say support the human first, and then the athlete, or then the client, then whatever. Like if you really get in, again, to that heart space, and that's not what corporate world is super excited about, but take care of them as the human, and it just changes the relationship, and you'll get so much more out of it. I know all my people at this conference totally get that, because that's how everybody leads. So maintaining the team, once you have it in motion, you recruited, you got them onboarded, you've given them the invite and the expectation, consistent communication, consistent support, and consistent engagement. So that's what I was just saying. Treat them like a human. Treat them like you would your friends. They probably are your friends, as are mine, but stay in touch. Turmeric and Tequila has a new podcast coming out. We're talking about this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How was the soccer game with Junior last weekend? That's so cool. Oh my God, I heard a Turmeric and Tequila shirt was there. Whatever. Like just, it's all kind of, again, like this consistent stuff. It almost makes me cringe a little bit sharing this, because it's like, here's how you be a human being and a good person. Like it's all the stuff you should be doing in real relationships. This is the same thing. Really, in the corporate world, you gotta break it down step by step. Number one rule, you are your top ambassador. So how I walk into the room, if I'm wearing my shirt, if I'm rocking the logo, I am number one. If I don't bleed it, I shouldn't expect anyone else to. So don't be afraid to wear your own t-shirt. Someone asked me if I'd get a tattoo. Tattoos are not my vibe, I'm here for it. If it's your personality, it doesn't speak to me, but I don't even know that I do turmeric and tequila on my body. But if that speaks to you, follow your heart. I think the more you can embrace it, the more you can be excited about it. People won't cringe at it. Well, they might, but who cares? I think it's big. I think if you walk in it, they'll want to walk with you. So that kind of goes back to stepping into the light. Attitude reflects leadership. This is where I'm so appreciative of my sports experience, because as a kiddo, I'm such an advocate for life skills through sports, especially as a female. You get to learn camaraderie, time management, etc. But you really get to see how your coach impacts your world. Like my coach meant everything. I could definitely, it wasn't just about how good I'm being at lacrosse. It's like, did you iron your uniform? You look like crap right now. Was it in your bag all weekend? That's not acceptable. Did you just say hello to your teammates? And did you share like all this stuff really came. I didn't understand it, but I could tell and understand when my coach was not a positive attitude, but she was intentional and she was committed to what we were doing. I felt committed to the team. I understood, I saw it. So now in business, the more you're committed to what you're doing, you're your top ambassador, you're showing up, you're living it, you're bleeding it, that is going to affect the attitude of the whole community, of the business and everything else. So it's really important that if there's a problem going on, you have to look back as the leader and yourself and understand, being like, okay, is this starting with me? And most of the time it is. Like if I'm not sure I'm half committed, the staff is starting to get, lackadaisical or whatever, I would check in and be like, are we multitasking a little too much? Probably. Like we need to dial it back in. So this is kind of more of that responsibility. Before we conquer the world, we must conquer ourselves. Again, we're getting back into core values. And so it's always checking in with self to lead the crew here. So sponsors and strategic partnerships. This is the whole thing. Turmeric and Tequila, I did an episode on this because I have so many people at this point stepping into the light, starting a business, wanting to be more of an influencer, as an athletic coach, as a small business owner, as an art teacher. This is an amazing way. It's a great day and age where you can share what you're doing and share your story, and young people will buy because it's a woman-owned business, because it's a black-owned business. Like our kiddos get it, and there's platforms to share this. So I did a whole thing. It's longer than time that we have right now, but listen to the episode, and it literally goes through how you can start, what website to go to print your free stickers, how to communicate with different companies. Like this is make a list of your 10 favorite companies. So if you're sitting here and being like, well, I've got a business or I'm an influencer, I don't really know if I want to work with brands, but I'm showing up everywhere I go, I bring a blender bottle. Everywhere I go, I have my jean jacket. Like anything you already use right now, those are your potential partners. Sonos speakers, like whatever your favorite thing is, put them on your 10 list and those can be potential partners. What's so cool right now is back in the day, you know, Sonos or Nike would be like, cool, Kristen, like women's lacrosse, like you're probably not selling jerseys. But now, big companies are getting the joke. They want to get to these micro-influencers. They want to get in to people like us, into our authentic communities, because we have the real deal. They can pay people like me to go recruit and find it, whatever, but these are actually our friends. Our community is like us, so it's invaluable for them to come to us and sponsor what we have going on. Even if you have 100 followers, it's authentic endorsement. If she's like, well, what speakers use? I'm like, Sonos, they're the best, go to it, whatever. That transaction, while it's really hard to measure that KPI and show it to them, is amazing. And it's old school word of mouth. She'll go and buy it without checking. Like anyone's like, oh, where do you get your hair done? Well, I go to such and such. And then they just go. They don't go to a trial haircut. Like you just go in. So we're in this awesome space right now where the big guys are, they may not fully get it, but they see our value and there's opportunity for us to align. And you can close some really solid cash with that. These are more complicated conversations, and I have my cards and everything out there. Feel free, if you ever had a specific question, just reach out to me. But there's opportunity, but more importantly, if KO Alliance is now working with Nike, that's incredible brand leverage. While I'm like, I know Nike and like, yes, I get it, it looks great. The rest of the world's like, oh my God, Nike, that's a big deal. Like people love resume and they love buzzwords, and so fine. So it's incredible brand leverage for a little KO Alliance, which we are doing big things. But to work with like a giant like Nike, it's like, oh, that's so big. The rest of the world digests it as a big deal, which it is, but keep your feet on the ground. Before you tell them about what you're doing, so a lot of people when they're shopping sponsors, they're like, hey Nike, I'm coming out, here's my media kit, here's this. Get on the phone with somebody, I break this down in the podcast, find a specific contact on LinkedIn, use all your social media stalking skills on this. Find a contact, reach out to them, and ask them what their 2022 goals are. And so when they tell you, like, this is what we're looking for, instead of me saying, here's what I am, you know, sponsor me, ask them what they want, and then tell them, oh, you're looking for women under 40 that do CrossFit, that have blonde hair, or whatever. I'm like, I do that. Oh, you want to tackle youth initiatives in sports. Well, now I'm changing my media guide to, like, we do that because we can tackle youth sports. So you can customize. You actually have to do it, of course. But what you're doing to what they want. So then that streamlines the process. They probably have hundreds of thousands of people, the big companies that are reaching out being like, sponsor my event, sponsor this. You've got to answer their questions exactly the way they want to hear them for them to align. It's really hard to close these, but if you know what they want ahead of time, you just ask, you can put in exactly what you're doing is the answer to what they want. Does that make sense? So just find that right person and adjust yourself accordingly. And there's information out there. Don't go to the website at like, you know, info@sonospeakers.com and then be like, here's my submission. Go on to LinkedIn, find out their media person, and then message them directly. Like do some webbing, weaving, and you'll be surprised how accessible some humans are. And they'll listen to you. So and again, that's that relationship. It's huge. Ask them with their goals. Treat it like a relationship. Again, we know this. Same thing as the brand ambassador. Brand ambassador. This is the key piece right here. Bypass the agency. So KO Alliance, it annoys me when people call it an agency because it's not really, but whatever. If you're a bigger company, it's come to the point where you can't manage a brand ambassador team anymore, or you want someone to do it, call me. If you're starting out and right now you don't want to spend a lot of money on it or whatever, you want to learn the skills, do it yourself. But the biggest key in bypassing this is that if you get that partnership with Sonos or your brand ambassadors, if I'm going through an agency, they're facilitating the relationship with Sonos. When you want it again the next year, guess who you have to go through? The agency to Sonos. So at any point if the agency goes away or they want a bigger breakdown, they've got you handcuffed because they have all the relationships with Sonos. So if you can do the legwork on the front end, you facilitate the relationships, you put in energy, you build a relationship, no one's in the middle. No one's out there, and it's not even about the money, they'll take a percentage of what you have going on, but it's again about that relationship. So if Sonos person then goes to, I don't know, another radio company or speaker company, whatever, now you have a relationship there. So it's all about relationships and facilitating it. Agency can streamline it, and it is necessary. But if you can start out and build those relationships yourself and manage it yourself, that is the key piece. And that's really how you get this going. It's hard to start these and close deals, but once you can facilitate a couple relationships and get the flow, Nike people go to Reebok, and then they go to Adidas, and then it all kind of stays in the circle. Does that make sense? Okay. So protect those relationships at all costs. This is kind of the close to a little bit cliche, but follow your heart, find your varsity humans, embrace your voice and personal responsibility, lead by example, inspire your community slash audience, define your own meaning, and change the world. I so believe it. I believe in the power of influence from responsible humans and small business. There's so much opportunity to disrupt things, not only on a money level, but if you start disrupting the money chain, that goes to big food, big pharma, youth health, nutrition, like the larger issues are politics. Bigger things get disrupted by small, little graceful choices on the front end. This, I say dare greatly, disrupt gracefully. Talk about grace, that has to be in my mind because sometimes it's easier just to kick down the door. But the takeaway is live in pursuit of your purpose and the money will come. I know everyone's so wrapped up, especially the bigger clients, like, where's the money, what are we doing, how are we driving this? But the journey has to matter. The most important piece, your time will be spent. The journey will be experienced with the right humans. And I think our goal in general is just to be useful. So find a way to step into the light. This is, the links didn't populate, but I'll put this back on there. Core values that Tessa suggests, Canva, I think you should use for all your assets. It's so easy, and it can look super clean. You don't have to pay anyone. The stickers are really cheap, easy way to start. And then banners, media wall, like if you saw my turmeric and tequila with all my friends, I think they were like $100 to $200. And I dropped that everywhere. It looks super professional. It's really easy. Like all this stuff is accessible now. Before you needed like a major print company and at least a couple K to get some stuff that looks good. So this is some more of my crew. I solicit free tequila and their brand ambassadors so you can see they're happy. That's another one of my notes. All of these documentaries, I'm a documentaries nerd, but if you want to see the power of social media and be able to check the negative to the side and remain positive, but that is some fascinating intel on the impact of social media, Question a Better Way, Stink is about chemicals and stuff. Like these are just like some good disruptors in conversation on social media that while a lot of it's negative, it should inspire you to step into the light, be like, okay, well, I'm gonna be positive. Like, we can't mute it, let's step into it, disrupt what's going on. And I'm here for all rescue animals, so get a dog. This is my information, this is awesome. If you're into the business side and the business nerd, I'm also a business nerd. It's a measurable study that shows people are now, the consumers are shopping and they're influenced by things that they trust versus things that they love. So, meaning, I trust this company, like I love, this brand of whatever, Adidas, but I really trust Nike because I've seen their commercials, I know who makes it, whatever, I'm gonna go with that. And never before has this been measured. Like I've been kind of talking about this, shop with your heart and shop with intention and blah, blah, for years. This is an actual study, an Edelman group that put it together that makes it qualifiable and quantifiable for my big companies to understand that no, the consumer is actually buying based on trust more than things that they love. So while it sounds complex, it's not. We're going with things that we trust, even though, like you have that friend that you love, but you're like, you're not gonna drive me home. We're going with the friend that maybe is less cool, but we know didn't have drinks tonight. So again, this is pretty new, but it's exciting to see like disruption and happening. And like people really do care. Our kiddos get it. They will, if they've got $10 for lunch, they'll spend $6 of it on a locally sourced green juice versus a Snickers that's $1. Like our kids get it. So it's an exciting time. If you want the data, I really suggest checking that out. If you have any questions or you have a small business and you want to start, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm totally down to help anyone. I'm accessible and I'm excited to see kind of who kicks off into what and what big things happen. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions or anything? I know I talked really fast. I think my heart's at like 145 right now.
You mentioned somewhere to go online and to do an assessment of 35 core values when you have the resource.
Yes. So if you go on my website, koalliance.com, courses and resources is the tab all the way to the right. Okay. It's the first link that says VPN values preference indicator. It'll see it's the first link. So it's not even run through me, but this is the company that I think is the best test that I found out of all of them. And like I said, it's $35 and you get like 6 or 7 pages of intel around your core values. And it's pretty awesome. Like you'll see things that pop up, like creativity. I was like, is that even a value? Like what? But then it made sense once I read all the details. So that's, as an athlete or as a business person, that's the number one thing I suggest that I wish I would have did when I was younger. Any other questions? No? I'm curious, who has a business in here? Oh, yes. Okay. Do you guys have brand ambassador programs?
No, I'm curious what if somebody you're starting cost structures, if I break interested in getting help with arranging a strategy or structure, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, give me a call and like I'm totally down to help. Usually it's like a couple steps. Monetize your passion. Listen to that podcast. So, I mean, I kind of break it down, but just call me and I can give you initial suggestions. But starting out, it can be really, really simple. And like even brand ambassadors for like as a photographer, I don't know if that's the mission, but just as an example, you could have people that are like, oh, I've got my 5 friends that do this, because people are always like, well, I need a photographer. And they're like, oh my God, call my dude Benedict. Here's his card. He does weddings and events or whatever. So it's probably stuff you already have in motion. It's just about formalizing it.
So one of my challenges I find with this is that my core audience, as far as clients, are 35 to 60-year-old women.
Okay.
You guys. And I struggle, like, Instagram's not their world, right? And a lot of people are like, I'm done with Facebook because it's so challenging. And I'm finding it harder and harder to reach that audience. Like, again, the 20-something, 30-something, they're a lot easier to find, but this kind of middle-aged audience, I'm struggling. Do you have any suggestions as to ways to reach that audience better using electronic sources and the key indicators and brand ambassadors and the like?
So Facebook would be my social media suggestion for just that age demographic. And I would find influencers that are on social media that are of that demographic that speak to that audience that is that. So even though I completely believe I see the gap, but I do think there's people like me that are on social media that can be like, you need to go check out this, funeral and putting the fun in the funeral and and like utilizing their voice directly reaching to their community that already exists. Because I don't think you're gonna be able to like recreate the wheel or like really get on Instagram right now and be productive, but I do think there's people that you can find that would reverberate your message very, very well.
Okay.
And then I don't know this space well, but like something creative strategy, like maybe partnering with funeral homes or partnering with flower shops that work directly with funeral homes, or I think events like this where you can educate because there's a conversation piece is huge. So you're already doing that, right?
That's the best way for me so far is to like actually talk directly to people and get that contact and then be able to reach back out to them through direct contact.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, and people here, like we're probably all leads in our community. So you're like hitting the micro-influencer of individual communities of people like this. So like I'll go home and talk about like, have you done your funeral planning yet? Da, da, da. Like, so it's a lot of leaders and moving shakes and stuff like this. So I think that's extraordinarily well played.
Speaking of which, if you want to get on my list, don't forget.
Yeah.
Well, my son is a wrestler at IU.
Oh, yes.
So the NIL is like insane right now.
Yeah.
And he's a brand ambassador, and I'm his marketing person.
Okay.
But for your, just to answer your question, LinkedIn is
That's
true now.
the link that I'm an IT recruiter as well. So that age group is in LinkedIn or Facebook group.
Yeah, that's where I'm rocking.
Yeah, it's creator group,
Yeah.
but you can create a group on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
LinkedIn has groups, and you can invite people and put them in your groups and talk to them.
Thank you. That LinkedIn, it's becoming more and more like a
It's
social
so
media
hot.
platform.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like now
They
CEOs
have
are like surfing.
emojis now that you can
Yeah.
like, love, clap.
It's like adult social media,
It
whatever.
is.
But no, thank you. That's actually, I think that is the way to go. LinkedIn is out here. But I'm super curious if you keep in
Yeah, what's
touch,
that?
because the kiddos monetizing their likeness. I'm here for not going to the university, but damn it, you're making the passion business early, and like I don't know, they get it. So I'm
Yeah,
glad
we'll
you're-
set up for this.
yeah, I'm glad parents are involved though, because like you need guidance
Oh,
on that.
I'm the
'cause-
momager.
Yeah.
I have a shirt that says mom.
Oh, that's a whole. That's
My son
a
doesn't know how to read a con. This
Oh,
company
no.
was like, sign this. I'm like, then if you sign it, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
We will not be mother son anymore.
And companies will know that there's negligence there, and they have no problem doing that.
Oh, for sure.
It's like old school music industry. They'll
He
smoke you.
stuck to. They gave him one. It was like 10 pages. I'm like,
Yeah.
attorney.
Yeah. Oh, and legal Zoom is like $25. Like,
I
it's
know.
cheap ways around that.
I have friends, so yeah.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to hear about how that.
Yeah, we'll
goes.
chat.
Did you guys have any other questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Since I'm definitely the oldest one here, and I'm also Chelsea's mother.
Oh, yes.
We got the film.
She wants you to do the survey.
Oh, good job. Yes. Thank you, Mom.
Also,
I'm fired.
I think for the older generation, like my age, I like the personal contact. I love the one-on-one because at this age, there isn't, I mean, for older
I'll send
people,
Penn to
there
you.
is not the contact
Girl.
that people need. And the older people